как обычный ребенок,
I went to school like any other kid in a small town called Uralsk and got into sports on my own. From my very first practice, I knew that short track was the right fit for me. One lap is 111 meters. Speed is very important, and so is crossing the finish line first. It's all about psychology and tactics and, of course, the adrenaline. You never know who will take the first place. Even before the Olympics, no one, not even world champions or Olympic champions, can predict the outcome. It's unpredictable. Anything can happen. I've competed in 4 Olympic Games, and my 4th Olympics took place in Milan. It was at those particular games that I felt the most support. I've been in sports for over 20 years. It'll be 23 years soon. So I have all this experience, and it would be a shame if I didn't share this knowledge. In the future, I will try to share it with everyone so that the best athletes, the strongest athletes, represent us in every region and our country.
Самые сильные спортсмены.
Speed is the religion of the 21st century, but there are people who have harnessed it and made it work for the history of an entire country. In the world of elite global sports, short track is known as Formula One on skates. It is the realm of extreme speeds, precision calculations, and heart-stopping risks, where the fate of Olympic gold is decided not by seconds, but by barely perceptible thousandths of a second. And in this frenzied and predictable element, Kazakhstan has its own symbolic figure, its absolute embodiment of unyielding will. Abzal Azhgaliyev, a man who proudly represents the Kazakh school of short-track speed skating, an athlete forged through the trials of 4 Winter Olympic Games. Twice, he carried Kazakhstan's flag onto the world's biggest sporting stages, bearing the hopes and pride of an entire nation. The journey from a frozen backyard rink in the outskirts of Uralsk to the pinnacle of world sport was anything but easy. He became the first Kazakh short-track skater to win gold at a World Cup stage, learned to stay composed when everything around him seemed to be falling apart, and proved that resilience can be just as important as talent. This is more than a sporting career. It is the story of an extraordinary rise built on perseverance. It is his unique road to gold, a journey that began in silence, with no certainty of success. To truly understand the scale of his achievements, you have to turn back the clock some 25 years and find yourself in Uralsk at the beginning of the 2000s. It was a city where the harsh winter winds of the steppe could turn any puddle into ice overnight, but where professional short-track speed skating seemed almost unimaginable. Young Abzal was an ordinary boy growing up on the outskirts of the city, full of energy and constantly searching for a way to channel it. He found his calling in sports through trial and error, joining the most popular sports clubs in his region without even suspecting what kind of destiny lay ahead of him.
Другие виды спорта, конечно же, пробовал, как
I tried several different sports before finding my true calling. Wrestling and boxing were especially popular, so naturally, I wanted to give them a shot.
Конечно же, у меня желание было, и я попробовал.
I spent a day at a wrestling practice, then decided to try boxing, but unfortunately the gym happened to be closed. After that, I joined a taekwondo club and trained there for some time. I really enjoyed it. We even had a taekwondo section at my school, which made it easy to keep practicing. At one point, however, we were required to buy a uniform. I ordered one but couldn't afford to pay for it.
И я форму заказал.
I felt embarrassed and simply stopped going to training. For a while, I stepped away from sports altogether. However, since I was an energetic kid, I needed somewhere to channel that energy. I wanted to get back into sports and began looking for a new direction. I was fascinated by cycling and seriously wanted to take it up, but my mother was firmly against it. She considered it too dangerous and worried that I might get injured. Fate often leads people down unexpected and sometimes paradoxical paths. A childhood disappointment over a taekwondo uniform he could not afford and his parents' refusal to let him pursue cycling eventually brought Abzal to the sport that would define his life. Everything changed during what seemed like an ordinary school day. A young coach walked into the classroom with exciting news. A state-of-the-art ice arena had opened in Uralsk, and a new short-track speed skating program was recruiting its first athletes. The coach selected just 10 students from the entire class to join the program. Abzal was not one of them. For many children, that would have been the end of the story. But even then, he revealed the determination that would later become his trademark.
Конечно же, меня заинтересовало, но
Of course, I was interested, but the coach didn't choose me. He selected only 10 children from the class, 5 boys and 5 girls.
вот они приходили в класс.
After they started training, they would come back to school talking about the new ice rink, the practices, and how much fun they were having.
У меня тогда тоже появился интерес.
Listening to them made me even more curious. One day I asked one of my classmates, "Can I join too? Can I sign up on my own?" He said, "Of course you can."
Можно. Я пришел.
So I went to the ice rink, found the coach, and asked if I could join the short track group.
Записаться.
He agreed and told me to come on Wednesday.
Конечно же. И приходи в среду. Я тогда пришел в понедельник.
I was so excited that the wait felt endless. Those 2 days seemed like an eternity. On the morning of my first practice, I woke up at 6 o'clock, rushed to the rink, got my skates, and stepped onto the ice for the very first time.
Когда в 6 утра пришел,
I loved it immediately.
получил коньки и начал свою первую тренировку.
It's difficult to explain, but none of the other sports I had tried gave me that feeling from the very first session. With short track, it was different. From the moment I started skating, I knew I had found something special.
В шорт-треке с первой тренировки удивил.
I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, and before long, I completely fell in love with the sport. At that point, I wasn't dreaming about a professional career or Olympic medals. I simply wanted to spend my time doing something I enjoyed.
Я начал и просто продолжал заниматься шорт-треком.
It is no exaggeration to call Uralsk the birthplace of Kazakh short-track speed skating. It was here in the early 2000s that the sport began to develop virtually from scratch. The conditions, however, were nothing like those enjoyed by today's athletes. Modern members of Kazakhstan's national team train and compete using equipment that meets the highest international standards. Back then, such resources simply did not exist. There was no professional short-track equipment available in the country, and staying on the ice often required creativity as much as determination.
Если сказать достижение этого ледового дворца,
Speaking of the achievements of this ice palace, it is one of the first ice palaces in Kazakhstan to develop and launch short track.
2002 года начал здесь.
Senior coach Magadali Kursibekov began here in 2002. He founded short track here.
До этого
Until then, and even now, our students from this arena who are on Kazakh national team have mainly competed in the Olympic Games. Just like Abzal, there is Adil Galiakmetov, also a product of this arena.
Абзал Азhgaliyev тоже воспитанник этого ледового дворца. Очень много, дай бог.
God willing, these children, the students of this arena, will also reach Olympic heights.
Вершины и воспитанники этого ледового дворца.
В те годы, когда я начинал шорт-треком, не было
When I first started short track, there was no such thing as professional short track equipment. We trained in ordinary skates, the kind used for figure skating or hockey.
шорт-трека.
At that stage, I was just learning the basics, how to skate, how to feel confident on my feet. As time went on, our coach began making homemade short-track skates by hand. He experimented, modified existing skates, and tried to adapt them to the demands of the sport.
Потому что это же не профессионально.
Of course, they weren't perfect. They were often uncomfortable, but we happily laced up those homemade skates and went out onto the ice.
И было интересно.
Looking back now, those memories are among the warmest and happiest of my childhood. There was something special about those early days. Today, when I train and compete in world-class equipment, I still think about those years.
ценю это время.
The first year of training took place in a light, playful format. The coach deliberately avoided overburdening the children with strict standards, striving above all to instill in them a sincere, pure love for the ice. And this approach worked flawlessly. Just 1 year later, Abzal headed to his first major international competition, and after winning a medal there, the teenager realized short track is his profession, his destiny, and his personal window to the wider world. It was then that his grand ambition was born.
Первый год, когда я занимался, мне с тренером очень повезло.
The first year I started skating, I was really lucky with my coach. We didn't do any specific drills, and we didn't practice any particular exercises.
Все дети,
For a whole year, all the kids in Uralsk who were training just skated around.
это было как массовое
It was like public skating. We played some games, and we all got interested in the sport.
заинтересовал.
A year later, I started training seriously and chose this sport. Then came my first competitions. The first international competitions took place in Moscow.
Первое мое международное соревнование это были в Москве. И тогда, когда я завоевал медаль,
When I won that medal, I realized that I could succeed in this sport, that I was capable of it. I wanted to go to the Olympics, just like all the great athletes who bring glory to our country. So I set a goal, and this also became my dream, to make it to the Olympics.
Также я поставил цель, и это была моя мечта попасть на Олимпийские игры.
Short track is a unique sport. At first glance, it looks like regular speed skating, but the 111-meter-long oval completely changes the game. It's essentially a race where you're constantly turning, and to stay on their feet, athletes reach speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour, experiencing tremendous G-forces on the sharp turns. There are no separate lanes here. Several athletes start at the same time, which turns short track into a high-contact, rough, and unpredictable sport. One wrong move, the slightest nudge, or a blade grazing an opponent's, and the entire race crashes into the barrier mats. To win under such conditions, it's not enough to simply be the fastest. You need perfect balance, exquisite coordination, and the mind of a grandmaster capable of calculating the overtaking trajectory in a dense stream of bodies in a fraction of a second.
Непредсказуемо. Все может...
Short track is unpredictable. No matter how well prepared you are, anything can happen once the race begins. A skater can commit a false start by moving before the starter's signal. Someone can lose balance and fall before reaching the finish line. Even the strongest athlete leading the race from the very first lap can make a mistake and lose everything in an instant. At the same time, a skater who is trailing the pack can suddenly find themselves in first place if others crash on the final corner. It's an adrenaline-filled sport that keeps both athletes and spectators on edge from start to finish. Whether you're watching in the arena or on television, every race can produce a completely unexpected result. And that's exactly why people find short track so exciting, because no one can predict what will happen next.
When Abzal competes, I can't bring myself to watch. The television may be on, but I never turn into his race. I tried watching once, and my blood pressure shot up immediately. I became so nervous and worried that I realized it was better for me not to watch at all. Instead, I leave everything in the hands of the Almighty and wait for the result. I still remember the day he became a world champion. It was around 4 o'clock in the morning, and we were asleep when his friend Danabek called. He said, "Abzal has become a world champion." For a moment, I didn't even know whether to believe it, but then I was overwhelmed with joy.
Of course, it's an injury-prone sport. You never step onto the ice or enter a competition with the intention of getting hurt. At some point, someone falls and they might cut you or knock you over. Someone might lose their balance and take you down with them on a turn. It's so unpredictable. And when you've competed a lot, with experience, you start anticipating your opponent's moves or your own when you might fall or something might happen. That comes with experience, and you try not to get injured. Short track is a unique combination of psychology, tactics, and pure adrenaline. In every race, especially on sharp turns, the most important thing is to stay on your feet, avoid mistakes, and be the first to cross the finish line. It's an incredibly dynamic and spectacular sport, particularly at the international level, where the competition is exceptionally intense. What makes short track special is that anyone who watches it for the first time usually wants to see it again. To help the sport continue growing, it needs greater media attention and visibility. Short track is still a relatively young discipline, not only in Kazakhstan but around the world. Yet its popularity is steadily increasing, and I'm convinced that it has a very bright future ahead. In Kazakhstan, short track remained in the shadow of classic speed skating for some time, but has made tremendous strides over the past couple of decades. What began in the early 2000s as the enthusiasm of a few pioneering regional coaches has now grown into a mature and competitive national program. The country now boasts modern, high-tech, world-class ice arenas, and short track clubs have opened in virtually every region, attracting thousands of children. The status of our athletes on the international stage has also changed. The Kazakh national team is no longer considered an underdog. Our young men and women regularly make it to the finals of world champions, win World Cup medals, and compete on equal footing with established ice skating powerhouses: Canada, South Korea, and China. And this breakthrough was made possible by the people who were the first to break this ice. Through hard work, the joy of victories, the bitterness of defeats, burnout, and the most severe psychological crises. For Abzal, the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi marked such a moment. Faced with immense pressure and the harsh training methods of the foreign coaching staff, the young athlete found himself on the verge of a nervous breakdown and decided to hang up his skates for good. His salvation came from his family home, his mother's wisdom, and the loyalty of his first coach.
2014'te
After the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, he made a firm decision to leave the sport. At the time, the national team was being coached by a specialist from either China or Korea. The team failed to win any medals, and the coach put the athletes under tremendous psychological pressure. As a mother, I was deeply worried. I kept telling him, "Son, how can you give up now? You've come so far. You can't stop halfway through the journey." It was largely thanks to Madagali's support that Abzal found the strength to return. A new coach joined the team. They discussed everything. All of this happened back in 2014, more than a decade ago.
Есіне етті. 2014 қазір 12 жыл бұрын болған оқиға болды.
This experience is also part of the journey toward heights that a boy from Uralsk could never have imagined. Today, he has 4 Olympic Games under his belt, an achievement few athletes can boast of. Twice, in Beijing and Milan, Abzal Azhgaliyev was entrusted with carrying the flag for Kazakhstan. This is the highest honor for any athlete. At his final Olympic Games in Milan, the whole country was rooting for him.
Абзалдың енді соминошын болып алып шыққан кезінде
When Abzal carried the flag, I was overwhelmed with delight. For any mother, it is an incredible source of pride and joy to know that your son is representing the entire Kazakh people. My heart rejoiced for my son. I want to thank the sports leadership and all of Kazakhstan once again for giving my son the honor of carrying our flag.
рахметімді айтамын осындай туалып шыққанына баламның.
Обычно
The Olympic Games held in Milan were my 4th ones, and it was at these particular games that I felt the most support. Usually when the Summer Olympics take place, all of Kazakhstan watches and cheers them on. But after competing in 3 Olympic cycles, compared to the previous ones, I felt a much greater sense of support everywhere, including social media. I think this is because social media is very developed here now. A lot of people are active on social media and are covering the events more extensively. People are aware of and watching our athletes competing right now, with the Olympic Games underway, and of course our impressive performances. They find it interesting to watch, and that makes them want to cheer even more. And it's not just the Summer Olympics. Everyone interested in the Winter Olympics as well. Overall, people are more interested in these sports now. At the highlight of the quadrennium in Milan, the Kazakh short-track speed skater once again made it to the final, demonstrating the utmost composure and skill in the most challenging tactical battles.
Но я не...
Of course, I wasn't disappointed. Every athlete goes to the Olympic Games with one goal, to perform at their very best, which I did. There is a famous quote from the American short track legend Apollo Ono. The only way to have no regrets is to give absolutely everything in training and in competition, and then let fate take care of the rest. That philosophy has always stayed with me. I can honestly say that I gave everything I had, both in preparation and in competition. But after that, there are factors you cannot control. That's the nature of the Olympic Games. The very best athletes in the world gather there, and every race is a battle. Of course, there is disappointment when you fall short of your goals, but at the same time, I know that I left everything on the ice and represented my country with dignity.
И достойно защитил честь страны.
The road to gold is never a straight line. It is a winding track that spans a lifetime full of sharp turns and dangerous falls. Abzal Azhgaliyev has proven that a step spirit can melt any Olympic ice. Having gone from homemade skates to 4 Olympic Games, he will leave behind more than just medals and titles. He will leave behind a system. He has already made the dreams of thousands of Kazakh children come true. Today they step onto the ice with confidence, knowing that nothing is impossible for someone with a passionate heart. The great race continues with new names, new records, and for the glory of their homeland.